Ever wondered what made retro parties legendary? Imagine the 1970s with a room full of guests and a table bursting with food so iconic it practically danced off the plate. JellO Salad with its Technicolor glow, Swedish meatballs that were as much about flavor as they were about flair, shrimp cocktail that made everyone feel fancy, and pigs in a blanket that were the ultimate finger food. We're diving headfirst into the retro party foods that defined a generation, foods that had your parents talking and your taste buds partying.
Nice.
Welcome to Flashback Foods, where we take a fun trip down memory lane to rediscover the foods that made the past deliciously unforgettable. If you're a fan of nostalgic bites and a good laugh, you're in the right place. 1. Deviled eggs. Let's talk deviled eggs, the unsung heroes of every retro party and the reason we all secretly still adore finger foods. Picture this, it's the 1970s and your mom's throwing a cocktail party.
Come on, man, I got 4 people waiting for me. I'm not going back here with 3.
You know the scene, everyone's dressed to the nines, and the buffet table is brimming with finger foods. But it's those creamy, tangy, deviled eggs that steal the show. They're like the Elvis of appetizers, timeless and always a hit. These little beauties are basically eggs that have had a makeover. The basic idea is simple. Hard boil an egg, scoop out the yolk, mix it with mustard, mayo, and a dash of paprika, then pipe it back into the egg white. It's so easy, even your great-grandma could pull it off without breaking a sweat, and she did with flair.
Okay.
Originally, deviled eggs date back to ancient Rome, where they were served as a starter. Fast forward to the 1950s and 60s when they became the quintessential dish at every family gathering and office party. If you weren't at a shindig with deviled eggs, were you even partying?
What?
Today, they're still a favorite at picnics and holiday feasts, proving that good taste never ages. And hey, if you're looking to impress at your next party, just remember, deviled eggs are like that old friend who always makes you look good. Reliable, classic, and just a little bit cheeky. 2. Fondue. Fondue, the iconic dish that turned any ordinary party into a gooey, cheese-laden spectacle of deliciousness.
Delicious.
You can see it now, a pot of melted cheese or chocolate bubbling away in the center of your table, surrounded by an assortment of dippable goodies. Bread cubes, fruits, marshmallows, and even pretzels were skewered and dipped with the kind of enthusiasm usually reserved for winning lottery tickets. Fondue first melted hearts in Switzerland, where it started as a humble cheese concoction designed to warm up the locals during cold winters. The Swiss were all about that melted cheese life, long before it hit American shores in the 1970s. When it did make its debut, it was like cheese's very own grand entrance into the limelight. It became the star of dinner parties, turning the mundane act of eating into an interactive experience where every dip was a small adventure.
Would you like some cheese on that, sir?
But let's be real. Fondue wasn't just about the cheese or chocolate. It was about gathering around, playing a high-stakes game of who's gonna drop their bread into the pot first, and pretending that melting cheese was a gourmet experience rather than a messy, cheesy fun fest. The joy of fondue was in the shared experience, the conversation, and the occasional cheese burn. Today, fondue might not be the first thing you think of for a dinner party, but when it does make an appearance, it's like a cheesy, nostalgic throwback that brings a smile to everyone's face. So dust off that fondue pot, grab some skewers, and get ready to dip into a little bit of retro party magic. 3. Shrimp cocktail. Shrimp cocktail is the appetizer that made us feel fancy before we even knew what a fancy dinner was. Let's rewind to the days when shrimp cocktail was the pinnacle of class and sophistication, and we felt like millionaires simply by ordering it. Who knew that a few cold shrimp with a splash of tangy cocktail sauce could make us feel like royalty at a party? The origins of shrimp cocktail are as glamorous as its name suggests. This dish traces its roots back to the early 20th century in the United States, but it really strutted its stuff in the 1950s and 60s. Shrimp were dipped in a zesty, tangy sauce that seemed to scream, "Look at me, I'm fancy." It was a staple on the menus of fancy cocktail parties and upscale restaurants, where it was often served as the quintessential appetizer that signaled the start of an extravagant evening. Today, shrimp cocktail might not be the star of every party, but it remains a symbol of classic retro elegance. Let's face it, shrimp cocktail was more than just a dish, it was a social statement. Ordering it at a party meant you were living the high life, even if it was just with a plate of shrimp and sauce. Remember those fancy shrimp forks that came with it? They were practically the crown jewels of cutlery. 4. JellO Salad. JellO Salad is the kind of dish that perfectly captures the quirky charm of retro parties. Imagine a bright, gelatinous concoction that's been molded into a rainbow of colors and shaped like a perfectly jiggly dessert. It's a dish that's as visually striking as it is divisive. Some people love it, and others, well, let's just say they're not invited to JellO Salad parties.
So, when's the party?
Saturday. And you're kind of not invited.
This wobbly wonder made its big debut in the mid-20th century when JellO was marketed as a magical ingredient capable of transforming any ordinary dish into a gelatinous marvel. JellO Salad was born from the desire to combine sweet and savory elements into one eye-catching presentation. Throw in some fruit, marshmallows, or even bits of ham, and you've got yourself a conversation starter at any retro gathering. Back in the 60s and 70s, JellO Salad was a staple at every potluck and church social. It's the kind of dish that makes you wonder whether it's a salad or a dessert, or maybe both. The answer lies in its versatility. You could find JellO Salad on any table, alongside other classic party fare, often accompanied by bemused looks from guests who were unsure whether to marvel at its artistry or recoil in horror. Despite its decline in popularity, JellO Salad holds a special place in the hearts of those who remember the good old days of retro parties. It's a colorful reminder that sometimes the weirdest foods are the most memorable. 5. Swedish Meatballs. Swedish meatballs are the culinary equivalent of a warm hug from a Scandinavian grandma. These tender, spiced meatballs, traditionally served with creamy gravy and lingonberry sauce, have been gracing retro party tables with their comforting charm for decades. And let's face it, they're the kind of party food that can make even the most stoic guest crack a smile. Originating from Sweden, these bite-sized delights found their way into American hearts and stomachs largely thanks to IKEA. Yes, the same folks who sell you furniture you'll inevitably assemble incorrectly also make a mean meatball. The Swedish meatball craze kicked off in the mid-20th century when IKEA started serving them in their stores, making it impossible to resist these savory morsels while navigating through a maze of flat-pack furniture. In the 70s and 80s, Swedish meatballs were a must-have at any self-respecting retro party. They were the perfect finger food for mingling and the ideal dish for those who loved a good excuse to sneak seconds or thirds. Each meatball is a delightful mix of beef, pork, and spices, bound together with a bit of bread and cream, then smothered in a luscious gravy that's as smooth as a jazz tune. Despite their Swedish origins, these meatballs became an American party staple, showing us that good food transcends borders. 6. Cheese ball, the crown jewel of creamy goodness. The cheese ball. No party can ever have too much cheese, am I right? No retro party was truly complete without this creamy, savory orb sitting majestically in the center of the snack table. Covered in crushed nuts and served with a side of crackers, this cheesy wonder was the ultimate crowd pleaser. Imagine walking into a party, spotting this beauty, and knowing your night just got infinitely tastier. Originating in the 1940s and becoming wildly popular by the 1960s and 70s, the cheese ball was a hostess's secret weapon. It was a simple blend of cream cheese, cheddar, and various herbs, rolled into a ball and then coated in chopped nuts for that perfect crunch. It was versatile too. You could throw in bacon, scallions, or even a dash of Worcestershire sauce to suit any crowd. Why did it become such a hit?
I don't even know, I can't even tell you that,
Well, it was like the Swiss Army knife of party foods. You could dress it up, dress it down, and it always got the job done. Plus, it had that perfect combination of flavors and textures, creamy, crunchy, salty. What's not to love? And it didn't just taste great, it looked fancy. The cheese ball was the dish that said, I've got style, but I'm also here for a good time. So, if you're hosting a party and want to impress with minimal effort, just remember, the cheese ball is always there for you, like the friend who's reliable, crowd-pleasing, and a little nutty. Literally. 7 pigs in a blanket. Last but not the least, we have pigs in a blanket, the unofficial MVP of party platters everywhere. These little gems wrapped in a cozy blanket of dough and baked to perfection are the snack that's been bringing smiles and maybe a few questionable dance moves to gatherings since, well, forever. Imagine this. Tiny sausages snuggled in a soft, buttery pastry, each bite giving you that perfect mix of savory and comfort. It's like a hug from your snack, and who doesn't need that at a party? Whether they're elegantly presented on a silver tray or unceremoniously gobbled up straight from the pan, pigs in a blanket are the life of the party. Their history is as charming as their taste. Pigs in a blanket made their debut in the 1950s, right when cocktail parties and finger foods were hitting their peak. These bite-sized wonders quickly became a staple because, frankly, who can resist a mini sausage wrapped in dough? They're the snack that says, I put in just enough effort to look classy, but I'm here for a good time. Today, while you might see some fancy versions with gourmet sausages or puff pastry, the classic pigs in a blanket still reign supreme. They're a delicious reminder of simpler times when the biggest decision was whether to dip them in mustard or ketchup. And there you have it. Did you have a blast looking back at these retro party foods? Drop your favorite vintage snack in the comments below, or let us know what classic party dish we should cover next. Don't forget to hit subscribe and stay tuned for more tasty trips down memory lane. See you at the next party.